Hi, folks. Welcome to the Brent Bozell Show. I've got a special guest with me today, John McLaughlin. John McLaughlin is a gentleman I've known for longer than he or I want to admit. But we were both involved during the Reagan years, both of us working for organizations helping with the Reagan Revolution. He went on to start his own polling company, has been extraordinarily successful, has worked for a who's who of campaigns over the years, including, I believe he was involved with the Israeli presidential campaign with Netanyahu, but he's also most recently been a pollster for Donald J. Trump. And it's because of that I wanted to, John, to have you on for a few minutes today, because I wanted to ask you, you know this issue better than anybody else. Before getting into the nitty-gritty about who's winning this damn thing, I want to ask you, I want to go up to the macro level of politics and ask you first, have you, in decades involved in this business, have you ever seen anything like 2024?
No, and absolutely. You know, you and I go back, you mentioned Reagan. We all know where we were when Reagan got shot, let alone those of us who are older enough to remember we're in grammar school and Kennedy got shot, but we remember what happened when Reagan got shot and how we felt. I mean, everything we'd worked for and accomplished going into the 1980 race, where the whole establishment at the time tried to stop Reagan. And basically Reagan won in a landslide because the country wanted him to win. We wanted change. And now, you know, having worked for Donald Trump in the 2016 election, the 2020 election, now this third presidential campaign, which is historic. And I've always said he's been a historic candidate. Where, you know, it's like there was a time, I got to tell you a great story. 2016, he calls me up before Christmas, and my wife and I had just gotten back from a lunch where I went back to the office. We were taking a nut out before Christmas, and then I get this call from Donald Trump, and it's the office of the president-elect. And he says to me, he says, I just want to call and say thank you again and all the work you did to, you know, to win the election. And I was like, sure. And it's like, I know I have a good poll. He had positive numbers at the time. And he says, you know, he says it was a huge victory. And I said, no, I said it was only 78,000 votes out of 139 million. 3 states we won by Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Michigan. He says, yeah, but it was a big electoral victory. I said, no. I said, Obama had more. I had this silence on the phone. And I said, but it was a historic victory. I said, nobody had ever beaten the Republican establishment, except maybe Goldwater. And no one ever went on to beat the Washington establishment, say maybe Andrew Jackson. And he was like, you know, you're right. And so the first time I went to the Oval Office, next to his desk, there's this picture of Andrew Jackson. And I said, it's a good thing I didn't tell him the guy won 2 duels. But it's like, but here we are, historic. Think about it. He forced Joe Biden out of the race because we were beating him. The strategy of who the better president was and do you want change in the country had caused Joe Biden to step down. And he stepped down after Donald Trump had survived an assassin's bullet, had a great convention in Milwaukee, and Biden steps out and he handpicks a candidate, never won a caucus, never won a primary. And they're trying to rush her through in a snap election, like a European snap election in a parliamentary system, where she doesn't get any public scrutiny. And you've documented how her overwhelming press has been, like 9 out of 10 has been positive for her, and 9 out of 10 has been negative for Trump. He didn't even get any sympathy after an assassination attempt. And then there was another assassination attempt, et cetera. And you have this historic candidate with 13 days, right? 13 days to go, where anything could happen. It's a close race. We're not used to this. We're used to, in 2016 on this date, we were down 6 points to Hillary Clinton. They were talking about a Hillary Clinton lock. We were down 8 points to Joe Biden. They were talking about a Biden blue wave in the media, and neither could have been more wrong. That we kept saying it was going to be close and we could win an electoral victory. And now you've got the popular polls nationally, they're within a point of each other, Harris and Trump. And she's coming down and we're going up, and neither one has 50. And in the battleground states, Trump is leading slightly in each of the battleground states, but it's too close. So anything can happen in the last 13 days, and voting has already started. You've had tens of millions of people go vote, and you have early voting and you have absentee voting, and every day counts right now. I mean, each side is like trying to win this election in the key electoral votes in the key electoral battleground states. And it's really close, but it's better than it's been for Donald Trump in our campaign. He's more determined. He's more focused. He's working as hard as ever, but it's better than it's ever been in the past 4 years or 8 years at this point in time.
There's one race, there's one campaign where I find a similarity, and it's Trump and Reagan. I don't mean tonality. I mean, the tone of Donald Trump is negative and in your face and smash mouth. And Ronald Reagan was just the opposite, always optimistic. Ronald Reagan never used the first person singular, always was first person plural, which was a huge difference. Ronald Reagan had "Let's make America great again." Trump had "Make America great again." But here's where I think the great similarity is between the two of them. Both of them, you touched on it, both of them ran against the Republican establishment. Reagan did too. Subtly, but he did. If you look at all the positions that he took when he ran, when he was talking about destroying the evil empire, when he was talking about cutting spending, when he was talking about reducing the size of government, he was really going against establishment Republican positions at the time. That was just go along to get along. And you now have a Republican Party that is the exact same way it was circa 1980, going along to get along. And Donald Trump has been upending that apple cart. So I have found great similarities between those two races. The hostility also against the candidates from the media is also strikingly similar. But on that score, this is where, John, I want you to comment on this. When Ronald Reagan had to deal with the press, he was dealing with a media that were biased against him, that distorted things that he was saying, distorted his policy prescriptions and the like. But they didn't ignore Jimmy Carter. They covered Jimmy Carter. They covered his track record. Facts were facts where his track record was concerned. What we saw, you did the poll for us in 2016 or 2020 with Joe Biden, and how the media completely covered up the Hunter Biden story, and had it been covered, your own poll showed that Donald Trump would have won in a landslide. You're seeing it again, but again on a poll that you took for us. And it was just issue after issue after issue, whether it is supporting reparations to atone for slavery, shutting down all health insurance, all of it, to decriminalizing the border, to decriminalizing all drugs, including fentanyl, all of them, decriminalizing everything. These are all outrageous issue positions. And the American people clearly wouldn't stand for them if the American people knew. And I'm talking about Democrats, not just Republicans, but Democrats wouldn't go along with this. And so the solution from her allies in the media have been simply just don't report it. Just don't tell the American people. And according to your survey, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 of her own supporters don't know these issues. How does a campaign succeed? I'm trying to figure out just how difficult it is for a Trump campaign to win when it's going against those kinds of headwinds. I mean, if this were an even playing field, I would expect the Trump campaign to be up by at least 10 points by now. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. And by the way, you were the one who theorized about this years ago. I remember you talking about the power of the media is not just in the bias that they extend towards candidates, but it's also in the censorship. And that was the key thing about in your 2020 poll, which is on our website on McLaughlinonline.com. 2020 post-election poll, you were the one who asked the question if they were aware of the Hunter Biden laptop story. And 36% of the Biden voters were not. And if 13% of them had heard of it, they would have moved. It would have changed the whole election outcome mathematically. So now you've got, when you did the survey with us, where you asked 800 Democrats and 400 independents who voted for Biden in 2020, if they were aware of, if that she wanted to cut funding for the police, 71% weren't. If that she would not consider it a crime to enter the U.S. illegally, 74% wouldn't. If they weren't aware she was bailing out the rioters in 2020 that went on to become murderers and rapists, 78%, and the 81% not aware she wants to eliminate private health insurance. That's still going on today in this election. But Donald Trump is a PR machine. He became a billionaire, even though he inherited his father's real estate company, et cetera. He became a billionaire by public relations, by, in effect, making his brand name like the best brand name in terms of whatever real estate, with Trump Tower, et cetera, the Walman Rink, all that. And he extended that in the campaign in 2016, where when he started campaigning, it was on a gut instinct about trade and about the border. And he was ahead of his time, but he understood from the average person how those issues would resonate. And he transformed the Republican Party from a party of the country club that, was losing. They lost to, when you think about it, they'd lost to Obama twice. And he made it the party of the working men and women of America. And now he's expanding into, our challenge in the next less than 2 weeks is to expand it into a majority coalition, because the Democrats are freaking out that he's getting African-American votes, particularly African-American men. He's challenging them to win the Latino vote. He's winning back the suburbs from suburban voters who don't want to be taxed, because when the Trump tax cuts lapse, 91% of all Americans will pay a $5 trillion tax that will raise their income taxes. Plus, she wants to also add on to that taxing capital gains for retirement savings, their homes. She wants to raise it by a third. She wants to, if you own a small business, you're going to pay more in taxes. She's going to lower the penalty for the death tax. I mean, you talk about the funding of a socialist state. That's what Kamala Harris is all in on, and the media is not covering it. We have to do it on our own through social media. He's still banned from Facebook. In 2016, Facebook carried us in there in a lot of ways because he was getting, a lot of eyeballs on Facebook for them. But they decided in 2020, they took him off Facebook because they didn't want misinformation about the Hunter Biden laptop. And that censorship still extends. Now, thank heavens for Elon Musk that he restored free speech on X, which was known as Twitter, right? But voters don't trust the mainstream media, and you're the expert on that. You know that. They've lost their credibility.
John, it should tell us something that since the turn of the century, every Democrat running for president has called for censorship, has called to curtail the First Amendment, has said that because of quote unquote disinformation and quote unquote misinformation, that there has to be more controls on the freedom of speech in the United States. Every Democrat running for president since the turn of the century has advocated that position now, where they're all in favor of free speech at one point or another. Listen to the Hillary Clintons. Listen to all of them. They're all openly talking about this. This is scary stuff. This is no longer, they're not just against the Second Amendment. They're against the First Amendment. But how in the world can a democracy survive? How can you have a free and fair election? John, when you and I were cutting our teeth, I was down in Nicaragua, and we were doing things down there. And one of the things that we were tasked to look at was to see if you could have free and fair elections in Nicaragua. Do you know that there are international observers now coming to the United States to see if the United States can have free and fair elections? Do you know that?
Yes, yes, and it's scary but you got to watch those monitors, because if they're paid for by a Soros-funded group, they're going to say that they will continue their misinformation.
Yeah.
And what's scary about Kamala Harris is, and her vice presidential candidate Wall said it, where they want to stack the Supreme Court. And the reason to stack the Supreme Court is so that they get radical justices who will change the Bill of Rights, who will basically limit free speech. And they'll say, like, you have Canada, like countries like Canada, where they have provisions written in their Charter of Rights and Freedoms, where within a socially democratic society or something like that, where they qualify it, they put a condition in. And what they do is they give the government control over the information that is going out. And it's really Orwellian, and it's scary and that's why when you talk about the difference between Reagan and Trump, they really represent the working men and people against the establishment. Now, when Reagan ran, he was the perfect candidate for television. I worked for Arthur Finkelstein. We'd go see Mike Deaver. We'd deliver surveys to them. Reagan could look at a teleprompter and deliver an Oval Office address like nobody could. He could deliver a 30-second endorsement ad like nobody could, because he was trained for it at the moment. Later on, we became more of an action society. So when I worked for Arnold in the recall election in California, we were blowing up Volkswagen at Holston rallies saying we're not going to take it anymore. But it was about action. Trump, his training was he had the highest rated reality TV show on television. We've entered a reality age politics where it's not always pretty, and people, they normally say they hate this stuff, but they keep tuning in because the Democrats have they've gone off in these last 13 days. They're on the deranged side. The idea that Trump could win again, they're sending out messages. They're calling him Hitler. They don't care. It's how offensive can they be? He's unstable. He's like, they're hiding their candidate and going at his character with things that absolutely aren't true.
John, to interrupt you for a second, they're doing that because they can, because they know they're not going to be called out, because the media aren't going to do any stories about their slimy personal attacks on Donald Trump. And they know that. And they know that if they do it, they're going to get the indirect oxygen from CBS, because CBS will interview her and allow her to say that and have no questions behind her when she does say that. They won't question the personal attack, equating him to Hitler, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, we only have a few minutes left. Now, you're going to have to, at the penalty of being shot by me, if you got to tell me what you have, the information you have in front of you. I'm going to give you 7 seconds for each of the battleground states, and I'm going to tell you where, as we speak today, 13 days before the election, where does it stand? I'll give you 7 to 10 seconds on each one. Let me start. Arizona.
Much better position than we were 4 years ago, because they're going to not let citizens vote. Plus, the border issue, Donald Trump's going to win that state.
Nevada.
Nevada's trending our way because of immigrants from California and Latino voters who don't want to go radical woke. They know Kamala Harris from California. They don't want her. So Nevada's, it's still a toss-up, very close. The early voting's going on. But Donald Trump, that's where you could, when we win Nevada, that's where you see if a wave is materializing for Donald Trump. Georgia, much better than 4 years ago because they have voter ID. The legislature preserved voter ID, whether you vote absentee. They got rid of the drop boxes in secure places so you can't have the ballot harvesting. But every voter, whether it's early in person, whether it's drop box, absentee, or on election day, has to provide voter ID. Close election, but still going very well for us because they've protected voter integrity in Georgia.
North Carolina,
the people in Western North Carolina are angry about the lack of help they've gotten from the Biden-Harris administration. And people are, even though they've lost their homes, they've been washed out, they're staying long enough to vote early in person. And then, and the numbers are coming out very good for Republicans. So North Carolina looks very good for Donald Trump today.
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, that one, the mail-in ballots have gone down, but there's still a Democrat edge. The Democrats, the unions in Pennsylvania are still doing a good job ballot harvesting. We're going to have to overcome on election day, maybe a 300,000 vote edge, which is a lot better than what it was 4 years ago, and maybe 2 years ago what Dr. Oz saws. But Pennsylvania is a key state for both campaigns. And right now it's a toss-up, but the Trump campaign is optimistic. And President Trump last weekend had a great weekend in Pennsylvania, working at McDonald's, which Harris hasn't done, even though she said she did, and also going to the Steelers game and seeing the people there turn it into a Trump rally for him.
By the way, I love the fact that I saw Kamala Harris attacking him for being a pawn of the caring only about the filthy rich. But the quote that they used was a quote during a rally, at one of his rallies, where there isn't a single filthy rich person on the stage. I mean, maybe Elon standing on the stage, but nobody in the audience is somebody who's filthy rich. I just thought it was a rather ironic clip that they used. Wisconsin.
Wisconsin's a toss-up. In 2016, it was decided by 22,000 votes in favor of Donald Trump. 4 years ago, we lost it by 20,000 votes. It's going to come down to the wire again. So there'll be 3 million voters, and the mail-in ballots are down compared to where they were 4 years ago. But it's always a toss-up state. So
Michigan,
the Democrats are surprised that Donald Trump is doing so well there, and we've got to be careful because you got that Democratic governor who gives out communion as a sacrilege. So,
as a Catholic, I was so outraged by that.
But maybe it's come down the wire. But the key thing for Michigan is the auto industry. It's not just the auto workers in their plants and factories that they'll lose if Harris wins and puts in her Green New Deal mandates. It's the whole state economy. I mean, can you imagine Michigan without an auto and without a car, truck, and auto industry? That's what they're looking at. That's the stakes, and that's why Donald Trump can win Michigan. But again, it's a toss-up right now. It's really close.
Any surprises out there? Could any state surprise us?
Possibly Minnesota. And, the Trump campaign, we're advertising on Minneapolis TV. It hits Western Michigan, but Western Wisconsin, pardon me. But that's a state where the backlash against Ilhan Omar and the 2020 riots and Tim Walz, who let a police precinct burn down rather than protect the state, although they've lost some voters in that state, the suburbs and the rural areas of Minnesota are coming out strong, and Donald Trump will win those. So the question is, it's turnout whether we can win Minnesota.
Would it be a toss? Would it be a toss-up state if Walz hadn't been put on the ticket?
Yes, because it's still between Trump and Harris. And Harris was the person who was, as you pointed out in that poll that you took that the media doesn't cover, she was raising money to bail out rioters who went on to commit murder and rape in the country. I mean, that's where she is. She's a defund the police person, as opposed to Donald Trump, who will support the police, and he will not let them burn down police precincts if he's president again.
There's some news reports out there that raise Florida. Is that wishful thinking on the part of the left?
It's wishful thinking because the Republicans, again, Ron DeSantis is doing a good job with the challenge of the hurricanes there. Republicans have moved there because they have no state income tax. But Florida is still Donald Trump country, and he will win Florida. Any
data on the Texas Senate race?
Texas Senate race is close, but Donald Trump's going to win Texas, so Ted Cruz should come across. He should be able to win. I don't see Ted Cruz losing.
Who controls the Senate after the elections?
The Republicans.
Who controls the House?
Whether they get 52 or 55 seats. If you have, at a minimum, we're going to win West Virginia and Montana, and that gives us the Senate. So then the question is, can we bring McCormick over? Can we bring Hovde over? Donald Trump, if it becomes a Reagan-esque 1980 election where Trump won the popular vote 50 to 43 and then brought in the Republican Senate with him, we'll see. That could happen again. But you know what? I keep thinking about, remember 2012? Remember 2012? Everybody was saying before the election it was going to be Mitt Romney. Well, the Republicans were polling well, and all of a sudden Sandy hits, and Sandy hits, and Romney decides, I don't have to go see the victims of the hurricane. I'll fly over New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and I'll campaign in those states that I care about. And Obama went to see Chris Christie, gave him a hug, gave him money, and captured the national spotlight. He went ahead in the national polls on Sunday night and Monday night, and the Republicans had stopped polling over the weekend.
And John, you probably won't remember this, but you and I spent between 2 and 3 hours on the phone the night before that story where Romney refused to go, before that story hit, and we went through the Real Clear Politics analysis of every battleground state, and the polling data, the analysis was that Romney was going to win all of them, and he lost virtually all of them because of that story. That's how bad that was.
And I still remember that because you start your book with that.
Yeah.
The book that you wrote after the campaign. And I still remember it. And I don't think many Republicans are thinking that, because we're on our side of the divide, and we're talking among ourselves and say, oh, it could be a Trump landslide. The other side's on theirs, and you have the Harris campaign is not being run by the Biden people. It's being run by the Obama people who engineered that. And David Plouffe, and the people he works with, Jim Messina's run the super PAC. They were the ones who engineered Obama's first election and his second election, his re-election. And they're the ones, you won't see it. It'll come on the internet. It'll come digitally. They've poured a ton of money into the digital, and they're banking on it. But we've got these less than 2 weeks will be absolutely critical in winning the election, because they know what they're doing, and they're extremely smart. They tried to beat us in 2016. Plouffe worked for Zuckerberg. He's the one who spent the $400 million to beat Donald Trump in the last election. And we've got this time. We're doing everything we can to stop them. But in the meantime, we just, every day counts. And until the polls close, we got to get every vote in. And it's not just making sure if you want to vote for Trump, it's getting your friends and family in, because that's, we have to deliver. There's a lot of voters on our side who don't necessarily vote, but it's going to be a close election. You got to get every friend and family member who might vote for Donald Trump to either fill in an absentee, go vote early in person, or vote on election day.
Well, I think it's very clear. We'll wrap it up with this, John. If you like Obama, you want Kamala Harris to win for the simple reason that this will be Obama 3.0. This will be the third administration that he will be controlling, and I do believe that. If you don't like Obama, understand that those are the stakes, and people can reach their own conclusions. But I do believe that this is an Obama campaign, whether it's Biden or Kamala or anybody else. Obama has complete control of this party, and it's going to do exactly what he wants done after she wins. Anyway, John, you got 13 days to go. I expect you're not going to get any sleep in the next 13 days. You look pretty good, by the way. I don't know. Maybe it's makeup.
I know. I feel. I thought I looked tired.
No, all things considered at this stage. Anyway, keep the faith. Good luck in your efforts. It's going to be tough. I don't think this one's going to be decided on Election Day. I think there's going to be all sorts of consternation afterwards. And I really do. I see that there are bad things that could happen either way from the standpoint of a crowd reaction to the results. But I am more concerned about how the Democrats will react to a Trump victory than I am to how the Republicans will react to a Kamala Harris victory. Say that on the record. I think that's going to bear itself out. In any event, thank you, John. Thanks for being with us, and good luck with you for the last 13 days of the campaign.
Thank you, and keep getting the truth out.